All right, welcome back everyone to another 4X Alchemist episode of this head-to-head matchup, Lumeris versus Cravers. I'm on a call with my brother, and we just had a nice long discussion. Here he is right here.
Hey everybody.
And we had a nice long discussion about this game state, and I'm 99% sure I'm going to lose. So I'm actually going to be forfeiting, and I'm here to tell you guys why. So right now we're looking at my screen, and later on in this video we're going to jump over to James's perspective, and he can tell you why he's going to win. So first of all, most notably are that James now controls Geyser and Gistrad, which if you remember, Geyser was my crown jewel, my diamond in the rough, which was the absolute backbone of my whole civilization. It's pulled me through these last 90 turns. Unfortunately, now that I don't have it, my back's kind of broken. Not doing too well. All of my resources and my FIDs are suffering, and James has these massive fleets knocking on my doorstep. The other thing is, if we just look at James's fleets right now, he has this giant fleet with 22 or about 23,000 power and 31 movement speed that has taken out all of my fleets. These two bits are my only fleets left available, and they have a total power of, see, that one's about 3,000. I think this is like 500. Yeah, so about 3,500. So about 1/10 of James's power. And since I've talked about it for the last several episodes, that because of the start of the system having no tier 0 or tier 1 planets, I've been basically crippled on my titanium production, and so I will never be able to produce enough ships to actually contest this single fleet, let alone this fleet down here, this fleet up here, and any other fleets that come in from his reinforcements. So it's really just a matter of time now before I lose all of my places. And so we're just going to kind of skip that part, that tedium. James is almost certainly going to win. So I'm bowing out. I say good game to you, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was an excellent and super fun game.
Yeah, even though I'm losing, I still had a great time.
Yeah. As we're wrapping up, do you want to just kind of summarize some of the things that you learned about either late game generally or about Cravers late game specifically from this one?
Sure, I think that's probably a good idea. I'm going to bring up a couple points that I've touched on all of my other episodes, but I'll just do like a little summary of the things I talked about a whole bunch. Number one, and probably most important, is population management. That you want to keep your planets undepleted for as long as possible. So what that means is that you want to colonize a whole bunch of planets and distribute your Cravers across them evenly, which means that you want to get the early colonization techs, all of this stuff down here, pretty quickly, basically on par, so that you can keep 3, maybe sometimes 4 Cravers per planet, but never more than that. Otherwise, they're just going to deplete too quickly, and you're going to lose your FIDS advantage. So, and then you can always just modify it as the game goes along. If you think it's going to stretch out for a little bit longer, pull some Cravers away. If you think it's going to end relatively soon, then you can stack up Cravers on your planets. Yeah. But you always want to have your all of your planets depleting at about the same rate. So you can see in this place, it's all about 30 turns.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it was incredible when I just conquered Geyser specifically, and I'll zoom in on it when we switch to my perspective. But that was clearly like the backbone of your empire. It had this huge influence circle. It had so many people in it, and I looked at it, and there were undepleted planets in Geyser, and I'm like, holy crap! The level of management that goes into this is crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, congrats on that one. That's a really tough problem.
Yeah. So if you guys remember on about throughout the last, since turn 60, a majority of my turns have been shuffling around populations and really micromanaging that. So that's kind of what you have to do. That is a core mechanic of Cravers. The second thing I want to highlight, which is just a little shout out, is the honeycomb scope. These vision circles are fantastic, and I've discounted the honeycomb scope throughout all of my playthroughs. but I really, really love having perfect vision and getting, it doesn't matter with obviously this Seeker 31 movement speed fleet, but throughout the game, I could always see when the AIs were coming at me down a star lane or get some sort of warning that I could pull my own Seeker fleet and match them. So getting these little visions, especially in these kind of forward settlements, I'm basically doubling or even tripling the radius of my normal vision circle with just the honeycomb scope. And they're so cheap, there's no reason not to build them. So I highly suggest utilizing that going on into the future. The next thing that I've talked about a whole bunch is the Infinity Shield. The Infinity Shield, which you get from your Chapter 2 quest, which gives your ships plus 30, or I guess I should look at this one up here, your plus 30% base health. Really can make all of your ships insanely tanky, especially when paired with the Adamantium repair bots, which give you percentile health repair before and after, or during and after battles. So this really makes your fleets have insane staying power, and really, really can utilize those percentile stacking. And then when you get up to the Goliath class, you can build them with 43,000 health with only 2 shields. So this really gets out of control with the bigger fleets that you get, and the more experience those ships have. Yeah, I think that covers the major aspects of. Oh, one more thing. The big mistake that I made, and the one thing that I think James and I we're going to talk about a little bit more on James's side is trade routes and trade companies. And most people think that trade companies are incredibly unbalanced right now because of their exponential growth potential. But playing this out a little bit more and this kind of getting to the late game, that's absolutely true, except that there is significant counterplay. So if you guys remember, when I was first scouting out this area, I had a pretty decent fleet with my Seeker hero, and he came through this way and found Liesel, Beatrice, Xanados, and Kalium. And what these places are some of James's major trade colonies. You can see that there are 3 trade companies right here. And what I should have done is that since these guys have, at the time they only had 200 manpower each, I should have
I changed that after I had about the scare of my life.
Yeah. So what I needed to do there was invade these colonies and destroy those trade companies. Because if I took the colony, that trade company would have been destroyed. And it wouldn't have mattered if James had immediately taken it back. He would have had to spend 20 or so turns building that trade colony back up, or that trade company back up again. And that would have cost him tens of thousands of science and dust.
So slight correction, go to your trade menu right now, because I just took one of your colonies, not that one, the trade menu.
Yeah.
And it actually, you have a 4-turn destruction. I think it might be 4 or 5.
I think it's 5 turns, yeah.
Last turn. So yeah, there is a small window to take it back.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like you said, after those 5 turns, then it's lost forever.
Yeah. So that's what you need to do. If you are playing against the Lumeris or someone else who wants to take advantage of trade companies, or really just in general, since everyone can make trade companies, you have to go and target those systems. And that's how you can keep trade companies in check. I think they're a little overtuned at the moment, the rate at which they get out of control. Especially with the luxury resource thing. Mine's a terrible example, but when we switch over to James's, you'll see it. But I don't think they are just totally unbalanced, game-breaking, horrible. I think they're a little overtuned, but totally manageable for aggressive races if you target them correctly and intelligently. So I should have done that. I didn't, because I didn't think about that mechanic at the time. But that could have really swung the game if I was able to kill even one of these trade companies before my fleet got wiped out. I think that's it for my my little end game summary. At that, I think we're going to switch over to James's perspective, and we can talk a little bit more there. James, are you ready?
Yeah, I'll take over.
Okay.
Hey guys. So now we're switching over to my perspective. First of all, David, I humbly accept your gracious surrender, and you and your cravers and their slaves will continue to be allowed to live in my galaxy.
Fantastic. I declare that that insane fleet that you brought over shall be named the Merrimack, and I surrender on it.
Haha. Nice reference.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, I want to not so much talk about the things that you did. I mentioned before. I was really impressed. Let's jump right in here. That in Geysar, only Vale, which was the first one you colonized, is actually depleted. All of the other ones are undepleted, which is crazy, given that you've been on this place the whole game,
Yeah,
right?
since turn 9, I believe.
Yeah. So just the attention to keeping your cravers on here, using this as your one like depletion zone, and then perfectly managing this to still get the maximum amounts and keep it alive. And just like you were saying, having them all roughly the same. Well, these two are 20. This one's a little bit longer because you only have the one craver there. But regardless, I found so impressive. Yeah, this was like your prison colony. So this one, yeah, I don't think you paid that much
Gistrad.
attention to.
Yep.
Okay, and so what I want to start with here is that David touched on it a little bit, and if you guys watch David's video, you'll see that, like, as you just look at his main places here, he's got luxuries up here, but just red sang right here, and not nearly the type of luxury resources that we started with. He also had, similar to us, actually, apart from his jungle place, a pretty mediocre start. Except, unlike us, the places around him, like this barren gas and this Arctic gas baron, were not nearly as good as our fertile crescent over here, our like triangle of goodness, where we had Galtor that started next to the industry node, which now looks a lot better than it was when it started, and it was all ash planets. But then the Savannah up here in Gemini, the Minor Civ in Calum with excellent planets, and then the Steppes Tundra, and this was an Arctic, now a Steppes here. And then, of course, wonderful Pleione, which Atoll Mediterranean, and then it was Ash for our maximum maximum industry. And Jade Onyx, which is by far the best resource that you can have, luxury resource. And the Lumeris do luxury resources better than just about anyone else. So Lumeris with Jade Onyx is a wonderful thing. This is the first time I've had it in a multiplayer game, so I was pretty excited. Yeah, I think that I mentioned it at the end of the last video, but there was a turning point. If I go to my tech tree, there was a turning point right around the time that we started getting these guys, our antimatter lasers, and boosted up our defenses, and got the upgraded hulls for both the Coordinator and the Hunter ships, where all of a sudden our fleets started looking stronger, higher power numbers than David's fleets. And so there were some dicey battles and some back and forths, but at this point, you guys have been watching, we're just increasing the amount of dust that we get every turn by so much, because our trade routes are leveling up, that it's almost impossible for me to fall behind now. I can make new ships with 22,000 power every turn. A new fleet with 22,000 power every turn.
I'm just noticing and coveting your 500 store of titanium, and I don't know if I produced that much in the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah, my luxury or my strategic resources are also excellent, and as you guys know who have been watching, when you have this much dust, going and buying, I don't know, it would cost 400,000 to buy all of it. Well, I guess, hold on, as a last hurrah, here's what we're gonna do.
Being a dick.
There we go. We now have enough. David, your titanium is now mine.
Yep. So that was my one chance, and if you guys have been watching my stream, I've been buying titanium whenever I can, but I just never had enough dust to do it.
Yeah. So the fact that I have that ability now basically puts the game a little bit beyond reach, and I would probably move either towards a wonder victory, which we were exploring here, or with 26,000 science increasing every turn, we could even talk about going for the science victory, getting the 4 endless techs, the 4 power of the endless techs, here and here, for example. Yeah, probably this one first for the extra trade value.
Holy crap, that one's so good.
So I just want to kind of, as we're closing this out, first of all say, like, this was super fun, right?
Yeah, I had an amazing time even though I lost. Totally would do it again at any point.
Yeah. And even though we didn't see David until the late game, and I don't know if you guys saw, but he ended the game without even having vision of Galtor, so he had never seen the home planet of these Lumeris. He did see the home planet of the lame Lumeris up here in Andromeda, but they were pushovers compared to the orange Maris. And yeah, and even with that, just the pressure we were exerting on each other through, being able to see the score, through the little updates that we did, where I had sniped out those wonders from him, which were, by the way, huge, game changing.
Still salty about that.
Yeah, and on top of that, I had this was a great start for me as the Lumeris. Number one, because there's a lot of room between Galtor and Vega, which is one of the things that is a win condition for me. Second is the Jade Onyx. Third is this very interesting start that we had with the extra industry for Galtor, where we didn't get a high population very fast, but we got tons of industry, which was super fun and allowed me to get those wonders. And all of those things kind of collaborated to build this snowball for me, that even making the mistake of not remaining as a pacifist and getting accidentally moving over to industrialists couldn't slow down. And so even though I never actually made it to 20% industrialist in any of my systems, I'm still stuck on chapter 2.
How is that possible if you win over to an industrialist government?
So the senators and the sensitivity are different. So I can, and this is what I didn't understand either, learning from this game, I can move all of my senators with my powerful political actions and bribing people all to industrialists, but it doesn't necessarily pull my my voters along with them. It only pulls my parliament, if you will.
I see. So, America syndrome.
Something like that, yeah. And so that was one of the things, and then the second one, or another thing that we want to touch on just before going, is the marketplaces. So obviously you've seen me do a lot of this, where you shift click, you load all of these 400 luxury resources and just sell them for huge amounts. We were commanding hundreds of thousands of dust every turn at the end of the game. And then there's also this, right? Having 6 trade routes, 5 of them level 10 or above. These things are just really doing the bulk of my income generation, both on the luxury resource side and also on the science side.
Yeah,
right?
So if you just hover over your dust for a second, you could see that your trade routes were producing like 10 times as much or even more.
Yeah.
Like 30 times as much as your actual systems in just dust.
Yep.
Not to mention all of the luxury resources.
Yep. So almost all of my trade route income, or all of my dust was coming from my trade routes. And if we hover over the science, more than half of my science is also coming from the trade routes. And so what that means is, going back to David's point about intercepting, you guys, if you were watching, saw me have a little heart attack when he came over to Beertus and blockaded it, because this pop-up came up that we were now losing 1,000 science and 2,000 dust to turn, and a bunch of all of the luxury resources, and I was like, no. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to jump in here real quick. Since I just posted my Horatio guide for all of you who watched it, this is a wonderful example of why population bonuses don't matter. where like getting a population buff of +3 dust or whatever, if you gene splice the Lumeris on all of your Horatio population, will give you a couple hundred additional dust. But that is a drop in the bucket compared to the 72,000 that James is producing from his trade routes every turn, not to mention the hundreds of thousands from the luxury resources. And that's why I talk about that this game is not population based. It's building and trade route and ship based, and basically industry based.
Yep, industry and science.
Yep, and so that's why the Horatio are so bad right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Other things to mention, let's see, some of the big things that I learned from this game are, number one, that with the right setup, Lumeris can take wonders from the Cravers. I don't think David or I expected that.
Not at all.
But I managed to snipe those two things from him for sure. The second thing that was really fun for me was the way that I was using fleets. So this was the first time I had really tried to do this whole tugboat and chameleon strategy together, where we could take, these ships, leave them behind. They sit there with 2 movement speed, and meanwhile, our seeker heroes could just be like, oh, well, where do we need to go get ships? Oh, here? Let's go home in 1 turn. And just fly across the map.
Pretty intense, which really nicely countered my strategy using the honeycomb scopes of getting some advanced vision. That was more for the early mid game rather than the late game, because I knew you could do this. And so at this point, if you can shuttle a 22,000 or more attack power fleet from completely from the other side of the galaxy, there's no way you can predict that coming, obviously.
Yep.
Unless I have like just a ship sitting in Zubin shooting out probes every turn.
Yeah. And so, I think that this is once you get ahead, this is an incredibly powerful way to, I think, win supremacy victories.
Yeah. So that was actually also my strategy on how to win supremacy victories as well.
Yeah. The wonders seem like they take a really long time. Even in my best place, Pliony, it still takes 10 turns because I just don't have the industry. I think I need to build more buildings, get more science and tech.
I think you need to get the biofuel reactor.
Maybe, but I don't have that much extra food.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess so.
700. It would help, but it's not the end of not the do-all, end-all.
Yeah.
I think that actually the science victory would have been easier for me because...
I think I would agree.
Yeah, it costs about 173,000, which is like 7 turns, but as you guys have seen, we're gaining, 2,000 or 3,000, probably 2,000 science every turn from our trade routes, and we're pumping that up in our best places right now. With the Wonder Victory, the thing that I need to understand is you need to build 8 of these buildings, and I want to know if you can build them in the same places or if you need 8 different settlements. I think in Endless Space 1, they had to be different systems.
Yeah, they were.
And I haven't won by Wonder Victory, so I don't know here, but building 8 of these things in different systems would take...
Sounds super hard. Wow.
Centuries.
Yeah, especially compared to the science victory, where I think you just need to get those 4 techs and then you win, right?
Yeah, I think so. So maybe it's one of these things that certain groups, like Riftborn, might be able to do it because of their enormous percentage bonuses in the late game or something.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think pulling all the way back, the last thing that I want to mention from a strategic perspective, Payne is playing as the pacifist race here against a very scary and overpowering guy, is that using the Lumeris abilities and this balance of dust and influence that I acquired in order to easily take over and assimilate the minor civs here and get places like Pisces, which I don't know if you ever saw this one, Dave, but there's a little place with Mediterranean, tundra, snow, Arctic, just like kind of bouncing out here in no man's land. And then like Timos here I had acquired pretty early on from an off-piste colony. And so having these sort of advanced bases to be the lightning rods for David's attack really prevented him from ever probing, apart from that one scare we had, of ever probing too much deeper into my territory. Because there was always, especially with Oshi and Janus, which are excellent places, right? Savannah Forest Ash, and this one, Janus, is fantastic with the double Terran Mediterranean jungle. He wanted to get these places. And so they were nice lightning rods and places to battle over, which I could deal with without jeopardizing my trade routes, because these things dying, especially these 4 systems or 5 systems all connected to each other, if these started going down, my game was over.
Yeah. And so that was my strategy. I knew that that's kind of what you wanted to do. And so for the last 3 episodes, I've talked about wanting to put a fleet together to go attack your main place, but I just never had the resources to do it. And if I had gotten there, you could have just bought a fleet and built it up and done all of that stuff, and it probably would have been stronger than me even then.
That's right. At this stage, I don't think there was a chance.
Yeah, but I mean, like 30 turns ago, I probably could have done it.
Yep, exactly. And and then the last thing that I want to mention from a completely overview perspective. Oh, this is such a cool vision.
That is such a cool.
Right? From a
cool
completely overview perspective, there's 2 last things that I want to mention. The first is, even though it seems like I'm completely overpowering in the late game right now, it's not because the Lumeris are particularly overpowered in the late game, although I think they are great. It's that I got my trade routes really early, because all of this started really from those first 30 turns, right? Knowing how to do the start correctly, getting a really optimized beginning, and having the right planets to go after. Whereas if you look over at David's start and you watch his videos, he was like, really in a rough spot, taking the diamonds in the rough, I think you called them, Dave.
Yep.
And we were much more in the fertile crescent of the southwest of this galaxy, which allowed us to really start that snowball, which we were still militarily very vulnerable for many, many, many turns, but when all of those pieces came together, then we created this unstoppable juggernaut of the late game endless dust, Lumeris.
And one thing that, if we're going to do just kind of a summary thing here, one unbalanced thing that we think that we've discovered in this ultra late game system, specifically when playing with AIs, is the pacifist passive law that gives you plus, 30% bonus per alliance?
Yeah. Which
30% FIDS bonus per alliance, which I know you're not taking advantage of here, but just in general. The problem with that is that passive races, when playing with AIs, can get an alliance with an AI race and then get that 30% bonus, and that's amazing. Yeah. But if an aggressive race wants to create an alliance, allying with an AI is borderline useless. Like for me, it would have just cost me 35 happiness in all of my places, and then I would have had an ally who was too stupid to build ships and defend itself, and generally just be kind of in the way.
Yep.
Where if you were playing with all humans, having 2 militaristic human players allied together, you could do like coordinated strikes, pincer attacks, flanking maneuvers, all sorts of intelligent and useful things. So in the future, I think we're going to ban alliances with AIs.
Yeah.
You can still have peace and all of that and get your minor FIDS bonus, but we're going to ban alliances with AIs.
Yeah, especially with the Lumeris, who have not just a normal government, but here we are, but the Republic that gives a bonus to the strength of all the laws, so you get plus 15% from each piece. Like, I would be plus 90% FIDS right now because of my allies with the Lumeris, the Unfallen, and the Unfallen. And if that were the case, like it's just a little bit too much. It's borderline of the Vodiani hero ability, which was the reason we banned Vodiani heroes. So, yeah, I think that's the last thing that I wanted to mention as far as like real takeaways from this game. But the overall point that I wanted to make is that
this game is amazing.
Yeah, the game is super fun. David's late game Cravers are a serious threat, and the fact that he made it to this late game as much of a powerhouse as he was Was super,
I
super.
I just lost the score lead last turn.
That's right. So he just lost the score lead. He's still, we checked, I don't know if we went in his side of the video, but he was still at 19,000 science a turn, even after I took out Gaiazar, whereas I'm only at
And all of my trade
26,000.
routes, basically.
Yeah. Whereas I'm only at 26,000 with half of that being trade routes. So
And your endless research park.
exactly. And so he's got a ton of productivity back here, and he's been able to optimize the Cravers to really not just scorched earth, burn his planets and move forward, but really, tap into them for the maximum possible resource gains all the way into the late game. And so I'm really excited to play this matchup another time where the starting systems and like the setup is a little bit different. Maybe we're a little bit closer. Maybe it's a different galaxy shape. And
I'm just excited to play again, man.
yeah, and meet David's Cravers on the galactic battlefield again.
Oh, one other thing that I want to talk about is we're going to be finishing up our expert guides in the pretty near future, probably the next couple weeks. And then we're going to hold a Reddit AMA for you guys to come and ask us any questions that you want, and we can have some discussion about strategies and all that kind of thing. And then we're also looking for some multiplayer partners. So if you and a friend want to play James and I in a multiplayer game, we would totally welcome that challenge, and you guys can just send us a message, and we will totally find a way to play.
Yep, that would be.
And I think that's all I have.
Yep. Anyway, guys, if you've made it this far, video, whatever this would be, 12 or
Like
13.
11 or something, yeah.
Thanks so much for watching, and it's been so much fun.
We love all of you.
Yeah, it's been so much fun to be doing this and learning so much from you guys as well. Getting the feedback from people and correcting our mistakes as we're still making tons of them, and coming up with new ideas. So until next time, that's, I don't know if you're counting, David, but I think that's 2-0 for the Lumeris for the stream, the recorded videos.
I believe it is. I believe it is.
Yes.
I'll get you next time. I'm going to eat your butt.
All right. Everybody, we'll see you later.
Bye.